mic'd up real quick. So, every day when I'm driving, there is almost without fail somebody throughout the day that asks me, so, how do you like driving for Uber? And I almost always, if it's a good day, say, oh my gosh, I love it. And they always ask me why. I spout off a few different reasons, and that is why I've decided to touch on the 5 biggest reasons I love driving for Uber and Lyft, besides the fact that I make pretty good money doing it. The money's great, and that will be a whole nother video, but for today, I really just wanted to talk about all of the other reasons why it's become my most favorite jobs that I've had. And I've had, I believe I counted the other day, 14 different jobs in my 27 years of living. So let's dive into it. Number 1 is probably pretty obvious, and that is the flexibility. There's something about when my alarm goes off at about 4 a.m., knowing that if for some reason I can't work that day, if I suddenly feel like I'm about to die, or mom needs me to babysit my nephews, whatever the case may be, something about knowing that if I don't show up, nobody is going to care. Making my own schedule has become something that I appreciate so much. The fact that I can literally just flip it on and off whenever I want is the best thing, and honestly, I can't imagine going back to somewhere where I clock in and out every day. I just can't. Which also brings me to a very related topic. Reason number 2, you have no boss. So even though you drive for Uber and Lyft, you are essentially an independent contractor, which means that they aren't your bosses. You have 0 bosses, and it's freaking awesome. There's nobody throughout your day that's gonna be yelling at you, where is that report that you were supposed to write? What about that article you were finishing up? Like, none of that. All right, the third one that I have for you is a little more deep, and honestly, it probably is my favorite thing. It is making connections all over the world. I drive here in Seattle, Washington, and I would guess about 97% of the people I drive every single day are not from Washington State. Which at first it made me annoyed because of how crowded Seattle's been getting lately. But that's a whole different story. I am so grateful that Seattle is a place full of people from literally all corners of the globe. I get the privilege and the opportunity to invite these strangers into my car, and if we start chatting. If they don't want to chat, it's all good. A lot of people do. And, I start asking them questions. They start asking me questions. They say, hey, where are you from? And, 9 times out of 10, they're from not only like a different state, but they're from a different country. I just drove a guy the other day that was from, I believe, teeny tiny island off the coast of Puerto Rico. I'm gonna have to look that one up again. I got the chance to ask him, what's your country like? What's the culture like? what are you doing in Seattle? Do you like it here? Do you miss your home? Do you have family back there? Like, what brought you here? And, you know, you really just get to connect with these people, and it makes you realize how big the world is, but how small it is in that moment in your car when you just talking to them, and it just gives you a completely different mindset. And the fact that I get to talk to these strangers every single day in my car that are from completely different backgrounds, completely different walks of life, have different experiences. It's honestly been so amazing, and I've met so many incredible people just by driving for Uber and Lyft. And I can't even express how grateful I am for that. It's been probably one of the coolest things, and something that I wasn't exactly expecting before I started driving. I could honestly get extremely emotional talking about that, but we are going to move on to number 4, which is a little less emotional. Number 4 is getting to know your city. I grew up about 30 minutes south of Seattle, of downtown Seattle, and I figured I knew the city pretty well. I'd been to the city, I'd driven in the city, I knew people that lived in the city. So when I started driving for Uber and Lyft, I figured I'd have no issues about knowing where to go. None of that. Come to find out, I knew absolutely nothing about Seattle, and it has been the biggest eye-opener driving for Lyft and Uber, because I've got the chance to explore a city that I grew up so close to, but really just hadn't ever discovered yet. Every single day I feel like I see a new neighborhood that I have never seen before. I get to drop people off in these places, and you know, I get to ask them, so I thought I'd been here before, but like, what's it like here? How do you like living here? Have you been to that new cafe down the street? Do you have any recommendations for dinner around here? It's been super cool just getting to kind of see the city through just driving around and getting a new perspective on how many cool places that I hadn't yet explored. And now, you know, 2.5 years later, after I've been driving for so long, I feel like I've rediscovered the city. And getting to do that because of Uber and Lyft is really something that I appreciate, and that I think a lot of drivers appreciate. If you think you know your city, I can tell you that if you get behind the wheel and sign up to drive for Uber or Lyft, you're gonna see it in a whole different way, and you're gonna find out things that you never even knew existed. All right, the very last one, number 5, is making an impact on people's lives. Maybe asking, wondering, how the heck can I do that as an Uber driver or a Lyft driver? I will respond by saying that I can't count how many times I've picked up a passenger that is coming from the hospital or a cemetery or a funeral. Just the other day, I picked up a girl who honestly, I was extremely annoyed at the beginning because she was in the worst spot to pick her up. I had to stop at a bus stop on a very, very busy street. There were cars freaking piling up behind me, honking at me. Just like, I'm so annoyed, but I'm like, okay, let's get her in my car. And she had a suitcase. So I had to put my car in park, put the hazard lights on, and I get out, and you know, I'm zipping around to the back. I have a Prius, so I have to like pop it myself. And I get out and I go to grab her suitcase, and I look up at her after I say hi, and she's got tears streaming down her face. In that moment, my annoyance completely evaporates. So obviously we get back in my car, and and I knew, so obviously something was not okay, and she was right outside UW Medical Hospital. She's crying in the front seat of my car, and I look over at her. It's only an 8-minute ride. I look over at her and I ask her, "Hey, are you okay?" And she proceeds to tell me that she just said goodbye to her father for the last time, just minutes before I picked her up. And you know, it hit me so hard because there I was in a crabby mood. I honestly, I wanted to drive past her in that moment because I didn't want traffic to build up. I don't want people honking at me, getting all pissed off at me. But in that moment, I just thought, thank God I picked her up, because, you know, I have now, she's in my front seat of my car. The tears are literally streaming down her face. I have two options. I can either sit there in my annoyance and say, hey, forget about her issues. They're not my problem. I shouldn't get involved in her feelings or whatever she's going through. Or option B is to just simply ask her how she is and hear her out, which is exactly what I did. And for that 8-minute car ride, she proceeded to tell me everything that she was going through and the reason why it was the hardest day of her life. She couldn't believe what was happening with her dad. He supposedly had cancer and they were stopping the treatment because it wasn't working. I got the privilege to just simply be an ear for her and to be that almost support system for her. Even though she is a complete stranger, still is to this day, really. Honestly, if I passed her on the street, I probably wouldn't recognize her. But in that moment, we connected, and I got the chance to just almost like be her shoulder to cry on. And you know, even if it didn't make that big of an impact on her, I know that I somehow helped her out in some way. I don't know if she was going home to an empty house with nobody to talk to and nobody to confide in. And, you know, I was more than happy to be that person for her. I mean, I'm not a therapist, despite my shirt. But, like, I mean, these people aren't paying me to listen to their issues. Essentially, yes, they are paying me to drive them places, but they're not paying me to sit down and talk to them. They probably don't expect me to even ask them questions. That's just what I've chosen to do as a driver. And that girl that day, she's honestly one of probably 15 people that I've picked up from the hospital who have either just lost somebody or found out they themselves had cancer. I just drove this other, I think she was like in her mid-30s the other day, and she said that she had cancer and that she was being treated, and both my mom and my sister had cancer, so I always know that, you know, I think people mostly want to talk about it. They don't want you to just ignore what they say. So anyways, I tell her, do you mind me asking what type of cancer you have? And she told me that she has brain cancer and that she's terminal. I mean, this stuff happens like on a weekly basis almost, that people get in my car, and if I hadn't said anything beyond, hey, how are ya? If I hadn't asked them, you know, what they're up to that day, we would have never had these conversations. And I get the chance as an Uber driver and a Lyft driver to meet these people that are, some of them are having fantastic days, obviously, and not every single day is going to be super meaningful and deep and impactful. But every now and then these people get in your car and they are dealing with these heavy things, and I get to be the person that they sometimes confide in. And you know, some people wouldn't like it, But for me, it's an opportunity to make that connection, because at the end of the day, we're all human. We all crave that connection, and we all just want to be heard. That's all we want. That's all we want. And the fact that I can be that person on the other end to this complete stranger has been such a blessing to me. And I believe, even if it's in the smallest way, that I have made an impact on other people's lives. And for that reason, that reason alone, I think, is enough to join the movement of drivers all over. And it's honestly a privilege. So that is all I have for you today. I know it got deep, but that's what I'm about. I want to live a very, very deep and meaningful life. And the fact that Uber and Lyft gives me the chance to do that, even on the smallest scale, is really, it's amazing. And I couldn't be more grateful for it. So if you are thinking about driving, signing up to drive for Uber and Lyft, my advice is to just go for it. Worst case scenario is you don't like it. You don't like hearing people's problems. You'd rather deal with your own issues, which is all good. It's not for everybody, but I do believe that there's a reason why there are so many drivers. And it isn't just about making money, just like any other job, hopefully, isn't about. You get the chance to meet people, connect with people, and on top of that, you get to make pretty good money and make your own schedule. So it's a win-win-win for me. If you have any questions about it, comment below. I'll get back to you. And then subscribe to this channel. I'll be coming in every week and talking about it and what it's like to be an Uber driver and all that good stuff. Thanks so much, you guys, for listening to this, and I cannot wait to see you next time. Bye.